What can I say about gnosis? I was asked in a comment once, not long ago, if I could talk about gnosis. And I thought, yeah, sure, that's a good idea. And then I racked my brain and I was like, I know what it is. I don't know if I can explain it. Gnosis is a word that means knowledge, okay? And it kind of has become a buzzword in a good way, I would say. But it has become a buzzword, and to where now people think that it's epiphanies, random thoughts you have, visions, things that you would equate with synchronicities and coincidences. That's the rub. You don't know. You don't really know where gnosis comes from. Now, if it's intentional, I would think that gnosis is coming from your higher self, is coming from a spiritual being that you work with. It's coming from a deity, right? When you're actively in conversation with these beings, when you're in active, intentional work with these beings. But what about all the other times? I've had visions, and I would call them very intense, active imagination daydreams, for lack of a better term, my whole life. Okay? Some of them have been quite quirky. to a point where it had me going, where did that come from? You know? If we thought about it in a psychological way, those types of things for me would be the subconscious coming up. It comes up like a burp, okay? And you just you sit with it and you think about the symbolism. If you're symbolically minded like me, then you think about the symbolism. It feels almost like interpreting a dream, okay? So if there's unintentionality, is gnosis really gnosis, or is it something else? Now, I tend to, again, use it as a buzzword, and I tend to kind of rope all these things together, you know, for clarity in my own head. But gnosis is just knowledge. It could be spiritual knowledge, energetic knowledge. It could be the way you process information. Okay? It could be the turning point between knowledge and wisdom. Now, to me, there's information, knowledge, and wisdom as three separate entities. I think I've made a video on this. If I have, I'll leave it below. But mostly, like all my other videos, I plug it into another type of a topic, and then I can't ever find what the video was. So, to make it easier on everyone and myself, I'll tell you that information is information. It's everywhere, okay? It's why I have these books stacked like this. It's why I put my hair like this. It's why the noise of the cars is happening. What's the color of the sky today? This information's always getting generated, okay? Think of the green matrix letters, right? Information is in a constant flow. Knowledge is when we pluck that data, that information, and we intentionally work with that data to make something out of it, to make something useful out of it. And then what happens is it gets into the filing cabinet of our brain. Now, our brain tends to run automatically with information, okay? When we've said, okay, I need to remember that, right? You do something with that to remember it. You write it down, you put it on your computer, you save that PDF file, you save that JPEG picture, whatever, okay? You're in kind of an active state. Then your brain puts it into a file that it thinks is appropriate. Now, it's not always right, okay? Because your brain is just a giant computer, okay? And you have to kind of build the brain from this kind of, you take knowledge, you take information and you sift it in sort of this like active way to transform it into knowledge, okay? Now, wisdom on this side of the spectrum is knowledge used. You've actively used that knowledge for something else, not in relation. Okay? This is, it again, could be anything. You use that knowledge and then you put it towards something else, some use. Becomes practical, becomes useful. Okay? Then that becomes an experience that you've had. That experience goes into a completely separate file in your brain as wisdom, as something that you've experienced. So therefore your brain knows exactly what to do if it happens to you again. Okay? It's the same for anything. You could read 1,000 books on a subject, but you'll really not know it, not be wise to it, unless you've done it and experienced it. And I think in spiritual and magical ways, Gnosis would run the same way. This, because Gnosis is really a Gnostic word, and it's kind of this metaphysical, word that you would use in magical ways and you would use in spiritual ways with spiritual beings but really it's all knowledge. Okay? It's the Sophia. And so it's all in how we use knowledge. So when I say I'm using my Gnosis, I'm using my personal Gnosis, it's really because I've gone through all three realms to get to where I'm at. I've taken some information, possibly seemingly even useless information, futile information, turned it into a knowledge, and then I churn it around on its axis. I shift it around, and then I use something. I do something with that information. I experience something through that knowledge, and then I become wise to it. And then once I've gone through all three phases, I can honestly say I've used my personal Gnosis on this. Now, there's, again, other buzzwords like shared personal Gnosis. This is usually when you've gone through all three phases and you've shared those same experiences with other people. Other beings, other people have had similar experiences than you. This is called shared personal Gnosis. Or shared Gnosis. Shared verified Gnosis. I don't even know. I don't like the word verified. Because in spiritual ways, there's so much unknowable things in metaphysics, okay, that for the word verified, it's almost like that word verified, Gnosis, is a gatekeeper. Okay? It is sitting there in a freaking hood, and it's saying, must be verified. Okay? And then like twists its evil mustache at you. And you're like, oh, how do I verify it? Do I have to go through all the stages again? No. Don't let it gatekeep you. But because it's become such a buzzword, there is a risk of you using it where you've maybe missed a step. You maybe not experienced something that you thought that your brain would understand. Okay? Your brain never will know what it doesn't know. That's it. Okay? Facts run differently in the analytical part of your brain. But metaphysics and magic and spirits and spirit realms and other worlds, hell, even parts of our world, they run on such a different hemisphere of our brain that to plug it in and to verify it with this ugly ass gatekeeper is trying to hop hemispheres of the brain when you really should just be trying to stitch up the phases themselves. Become clearer on what you want. Become more intentional on going through the phases. And then it's just like anything you practice, you get better at it. That's it, right? I can lock in right now, breathe. I would have to breathe a minute because I'm pumped about this video, but I'd have to like breathe, get calm, blah, blah, blah. And then I could just plug out a vision. Okay? But I've practiced. It's just like people that meditate. It takes practice. And that sounds gatekeepy too. Can't avoid it. I would say that Gnosis can be mundane, but it can also be sacred. That it can happen at any time. And it's just in how you interpret it. because it's knowledge. At the end of the day, Gnosis is knowledge, and it's the core of knowledge, and it's going through all the phases of data, information, knowledge, and wisdom that makes it Gnosis. I would think that whether it's happening mundanely or sacredly to you, that it wouldn't be facts and figures. Gnosis is the type of information that is seemingly above all of that. The truth gained at the end of it, the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience, at the end of the tunnel, okay, would no longer be a mundane thing. Somehow it transforms into the sacred at the end. And you get a kind of feeling about that. And again, if you're working with spiritual beings or deities or egregores or whatever, servitors, if you're working with other beings, it kind of a little bit makes it a little bit easier because having them with you somehow validates it. But you can do it all by yourself. I've gotten many a downloads all by myself, all by my lonesome. And sure, there's a little bit more doubt there because it's just you, lonesome little you, and you're sitting in your bed, cross-legged, and trying to have a vision, and you think you have one, and then you're like, but did I? You don't have anyone to relay it to, to help you validate it. So it makes it a little bit harder, but if you trust yourself and trust, okay, well, I think that was Gnosis. Let me write it down. Let me write it down in my dream journal. Let me write it down in my notebook, or let me record myself saying it because my brain can't make sense of it. And then even if you don't use it right away, if you somehow use it subconsciously for your subconscious to burp it up to be useful later, that becomes wisdom in and of itself. So it's going to become useful regardless. But again, I think it's the end of the tunnel that makes it so sacred, makes it spiritual Gnosis. I think of all the ways Gnosis can be downloaded. This, like I've already said, a couple of trance, it's consciousness magic, okay? Altered state of consciousness, trance work, astral travel, lucid dreaming at all, okay? Because I really do think that just dreaming is activating some kind of subconscious within you that you can utilize at some point, okay? I've had many dreams that still sit with me, that live rent-free up here in an open, one of those ugly-ass filing cabinets. It's got papers and Post-it notes everywhere. I've got dreams sticking out everywhere that I still feel like I use in my poetry, in my art, So, anyway, I digress. Meditation. Prayer. Prayer is a good one. When I was growing up, I grew up pretty Christian, okay? And we went to church all the time, yada, yada, yada. And all of the sermons and all of the people that tell you to pray, okay, they forget. And if I could have a TED Talk, this would be my subject, okay? Preachers, unite and listen to me. Any spiritual teacher, unite and listen to me for a second. If you talk about prayer, please emphasize the importance of listening at the end, okay? Because so many people just say, pray, pray, pray to blank, pray to this, pray to that, blah, 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 pray, pray, pray. But they don't tell you that when you get done praying, have a moment to sit in silence and listen. In some kind of hope. Hold that hope that you'll get a response. Those are some powerful moments. When you're sitting there and you're clutching your pillow to your chest and you're praying for something and you're just wishing and hoping on some falling fucking star that someone's listening, and you just get right up and you go take a shower, or you go mess with your kids, or you go cook dinner, or whatever, and you didn't listen, you probably missed out on some kind of response, And sure, okay, look, people that answer calls, they don't always leave you alone. Not always, okay? If they had something really profound to tell you, it'll come up again in a dream or something. The next time you pray or whatever. You'll get an epiphany. That's Gnosis, okay? In my opinion. But leave room for the response. Listen. Actively listen. That's going to be one of the heavy things about Gnosis that I believe. People again, intuition is a buzzword too, and instincts. I've worked a lot with both of the words, instinct and intuition. And it's hard because things that need you to think about them, things that you need to think about, those aren't the times that you need intuition to have the driver's seat, okay? They need to be processed. They need to be manhandled for the right outcome. Intuition and instincts are driven on those first moments, those first thoughts. But there are things in life that you need to process, that you need time to think about, okay? And so intuition and instinct need to have a backseat with those. And you have to kind of know what those are. So Gnosis would run kind of underground in those things too. Knowing when to use your intuition and whether this is some kind of, do I just go with my gut or do I need to hold in and process? And neither one can become a crutch. Because then you'll get to a state of not being able to make a decision at all. Okay? Ask me how I know. The most important piece of advice I could give about someone thinking about Gnosis, okay, really, is that Gnosis is information, is knowledge, and is begetting wisdom, all right? But it'll never ask you to go against your morals. It'll never ask you to go against your values. Yeah, gentle pushes here or there, okay? Thrusts in some kind of path. But no, they're not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. And they're not going to go against your moral and value compass. Probably pretty important to know what that is, though, for you. Don't let Gnosis define you. Don't let it limit you. But then when looking at the limitless, don't always expect Gnosis. Don't always expect a kernel. It's just all about the balance and not letting anything become a crutch in your spiritual or mundane life. And I feel like I've been on some kind of weird TED talk with y'all where I'm like, I hope it didn't come across like that. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something when I want to, that's like, this is my video to talk about Gnosis. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I'm going to end it here. I hope it was helpful and informative, and I hope that everyone has a magical day thinking about some Gnosis after I get off, all right? After you hit the end button or swipe to another video. So, anyway, hope everyone's having a great day. Let me know your thoughts. Much love.